And
Good evening, John.
you going to make some comments up front?
Yes, I would like to comment tonight on U.S. policy in the Middle East. From time to time, I just like to make a statement, something that seems obvious and probably obvious to our viewers. Mr. Bush obviously is in a very difficult situation presently. This conflict, if you really look at the situation he's in, he on the one hand is leading the Western world in the war against Islamic terrorism, and at the same time finds it necessary to placate Saudi Arabia, who gives the financial backing for radical Islamic teaching around the world. So there's this incredible contradiction that stands at the base of U.S. foreign policy. Now, with the loss of both houses of Congress in the recent elections, Mr. Bush is being forced into some radical changes. It's very, very likely, a very real possibility, that with the new Democratic leadership in both houses of Congress, that our forces will be forced to retreat from Iraq in the very near future. A retreat from Iraq will be exactly equivalent to a defeat of U.S. forces by Muslim forces. It'll be seen in very much the same way as Israel in the recent last summer, the war in Lebanon. Now, Mr. Bush has only a short period of time, and he's increasing troop strength, trying to bring the situation in Baghdad under control. Now, with that in mind, what was his first step in implementing his new policy? His first step was to send Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice to Jerusalem and then to Ramallah, of course, in an effort to pressure the Israelis to make more and more compromises that would lead to the formation of a Palestinian state in Israel. In early February, probably next week, the quartet will be reconvened with the pressing that same issue. The quartet is made up, of course, of Russia, the European Union, the United Nations, and the United States. Now, any Palestinian state that comes into existence, and I think everybody understands this, but any state that comes into existence will simply be a radical Islamic terrorist state. Whether it was under the control of the Palestinian Authority or Hamas, and they're battling out now to see who will control, in either case we'll have a radical Islamic state. So now, why would the administration formulate policy which on the one hand struggles against Islamic terrorism and on the other hand work tirelessly to establish a Muslim terrorist state? And that's exactly what they're doing. And the reason for it is because the radical Muslims, bin Laden and Iraq, the leaders of Iran, have vowed to destroy the United States. So there has to be this struggle. And of course, in the aftermath of 9/11, I think everybody understands that. Not everybody. There's been rallies in Washington over the weekend, and obviously quite a number of people don't understand. On the other hand, Saudi Arabia must be placated because for the economy to continue to motor along, and to especially any kind of growth, requires a steady flow of oil. And so we have this situation that we are in every time we go to the station to buy gasoline, we are funding our own destruction, which is a very, very disturbing situation. As a result of this difference in policy, opposing interests, the United States in foreign policy or in policy in general has long since forgotten simple dictate of right and wrong and have in its place simply implemented whatever is expedient. And as a result of that, I believe Mr. Bush has undermined his own credibility and his own position, and that does not look well for not only Mr. Bush but for the nation. Mr. Bush will be fortunate if he manages to avoid impeachment in the next couple of years. As a matter of fact, we have a brand new elected Muslim, the first one to Congress, a congressman from Minnesota, I believe, who's already calling for Mr. Bush's impeachment. Right. My, that's a surprise, isn't it?
Yep.
So now today, with that in mind, so our nation is without leadership because it had forfeited the principles of right and wrong. We want to go from this comment then to looking at the general Israeli-Palestinian conflict and what the real issues are when we look at that.
Okay. Now, also, John Conyers is heading up the judiciary, and he's calling for it also.
And so, who does he represent?
Yeah.
He represents the congressional area that is strongly Muslim.
Strongly Muslim. All right. So there's going to be we're going to hear that for the next couple of years for sure, that kind of thing going back and forth. We want to focus then tonight on the Israeli-Palestinian